What does it mean to turn a blind eye? What's the origin of this idiom? What does Indian summer mean? Does it have a connection with India? All this and more coming up, but first, please subscribe to The English Nut on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks. To turn a blind eye means to disregard something deliberately, to pretend not to notice something that you disapprove of, to ignore a reality that you prefer not to know about or would rather not deal with. Here are some lines from a song called Turn a Blind Eye by a group called The Call. To the desperate young, turn a blind eye. To the old and lonely, turn a blind eye. To our inhumanity, to our death-dealing vanity, to the methods of persuasion, turn a blind eye. This song is not actually telling us to ignore those who need us or to disregard the ills of the world. On the contrary, it is highlighting the prevailing apathy and telling us to stir ourselves and do something about the problems around us. After all, as poet Maya Angelou said, we are only as blind as we want to be. British Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson is said to have been the first to use this phrase. During the Battle of Copenhagen in 1801, Nelson's cautious commanding officer, Admiral Sir Hyde Parker, used flags to send a signal to him to discontinue the action against the enemy. However, Nelson believed he could win and chose to disregard the command. He is said to have looked through his spyglass with his right eye, which had been blinded earlier in his naval career, and declared, "You know, Foley, I have only one eye, and I have a right to be blind sometimes. I really do not see the signal." This quote is from Nelson's biography, Life of Nelson by James Clark and John Martha, published in 1809. The Danish whom the British were fighting took a battering from Nelson's naval forces. So thanks to turning a blind eye, Nelson won the day. Turn a Nelson's eye is a phrase with a meaning similar to turn a blind eye. One can see from the above story why turning a Nelson's eye would mean what it does. But while the phrase turn a blind eye is said to have originated with Nelson's statement at the Battle of Copenhagen, it actually existed earlier. British novelist Francis Latham punned on the phrase in Men and Manners, published in 1800. "It is lucky for the poor man he has a blind eye to turn to her," cried Lady Varney. To turn a blind eye is a shortened form of the phrase to turn the deaf ear and the blind eye. This longer phrase gave rise to the two shorter phrases to turn a blind eye and to turn a deaf ear. The first citation of the longer phrase is from A Discourse of Walking by Faith, written in 1698 by the philosopher and clergyman John Norris. To be crucified to the world and to have the world crucified to us, to be dead to its pleasures and insensible of its charms, to turn the deaf ear and the blind eye to all those pomps and vanities of the world which we renounced at our baptism, and to have it no longer in our hearts, but under our feet. Here's how you could use turn a blind eye in a sentence. She knew that he was taking office supplies home for his personal use, but she turned a blind eye to it. He knew his son was going to a party and not to study with his friend, but he turned a blind eye to it. The principal turned a blind eye to the bullying that was happening at school. I want to mention here that some people, especially visually or hearing impaired people, find phrases like turn a deaf ear and turn a blind eye hurtful or offensive. We should certainly be sensitive to their point of view when deciding whether to use the phrases. An Indian summer is a period of unseasonably warm, dry and calm weather that sometimes occurs in the late autumn in parts of Canada and the United States. The Indian in Indian summer has nothing to do with the Indian subcontinent. It refers to Native Americans, and Canadian First Nations who were earlier called Indians. Why this type of weather is called Indian summer is not clear. It could be because this was when the so-called Indians gathered their winter stores, or it could be a somewhat derogatory way of referring to a summer that's not genuine. Just as the offensive American term Indian giver means someone who gives you something and then demands it back. The first citation of the term is in the 1778 work Letters from an American Farmer. It was written by Michel Guillaume Jean de Crèvecoeur, a French-American soldier who later became a farmer. Then a severe frost succeeds, which prepares it to receive the voluminous coat of snow which is soon to follow, though it is often preceded by a short interval of smoke and mildness called the Indian summer. In the 1830s, the term started being used figuratively to refer to a late blossoming of anything or anyone that is soon followed by a period of decline. In the writings of Thomas de Quincey, republished in 1855, we find it being used in this manner. An Indian summer crept stealthily over his closing days. You can use it in the following way in a sentence. A star of yesteryears, he is enjoying an Indian summer with his latest film. Or, he enjoyed an Indian summer of remarkable business success just before his retirement. Or, as a veteran cricketer, he is experiencing something of an Indian summer. Before the American term Indian summer arrived in England, the English already had their own names for the phenomenon. They called it St. Luke's summer, St. Martin's summer, or All Hallows summer. I'm the English Nut. Bye for now.